All right, we're at Motorcyclopedia today, and we have a visitor, someone I haven't seen in probably a few decades, Ron Finch.
Give or take a day or two.
And but thanks, Ron. Thanks for stopping by.
Oh, I'm
Thank
really
you.
glad you had us.
It'd be hard to catch up for 30 years, but in
Yeah,
10
it would only
minutes.
take about 3 weeks.
So we're talking about some of the bikes that were here, identifying a few as Ron's work, which I believe so far we've found two possibilities. And of course, the one we found, Ron's daughter, Karen, found the signature. So we're good on that one. That's
Yeah, and when I signed my name, I never put it in neon lights. It was just usually small, tucked away someplace. And sometimes people would say, oh, you didn't sign that. Well, I did, and I'm not telling you where it's at. You'll figure it out sooner or later, you know?
But I think the idea, the molding and everything, but any of the thing with the molded frame has to be early 70s.
Correct, yeah. Well, I started in the 60s,
Right.
you know, so, but when it really came about was in the 70s.
You know, and if you take those bikes, even like that Shovelhead that you did, if you look at some of the components and the styling, you can kind of date them within a year or two.
Yeah. Yeah, I started naturally simple, and I got more and more complex as the years went by.
Right.
And you just kind of learn a few tricks, you know.
But I think, you know, when you started, I'm thinking of the days of Choppers Magazine with Ed Roth. Primarily, it was on the West Coast. I see you in Michigan. I don't remember which guy's in Florida.
I
maybe
don't
not,
recall
nothing.
anybody in Florida.
There was a lot of guys in the New Jersey, New York City area, but I don't
Yes.
know if they, I don't know if they ever got to be a name, you know, nationally known.
Right.
I
I don't recall anybody.
But I remember going the very first show I went to in New Jersey. It was still a lot of the the big dressers,
Right.
a little bit of choppers, and
And they had white wall tires.
yeah, New York always.
Yeah, that was, you know, nobody else had white wall tires.
You're right. So that's the first thing the White Walls did, because I think they were actually dresser guys, maybe that, you know, maybe switched into the choppers. you
Right,
know.
yeah. And at that time, they would just take off basically whatever they could off the stock bike, and it was kind of a bobber, you know, it wasn't a true chopper, you know.
Because again, every part had to be handmade or fabricated. There was absolutely no parts available. You know, as far
No,
as
there was nothing
bolt-on.
available, you
I know if we go back, you know, to the 70s or even 60s, where you could buy a peanut tank,
Right,
like those from Hap Jones or
right. And while I was bringing them in from
Yeah,
England,
okay.
you know,
And-
Wassel.
Wassel
Right.
his was the best shape.
Then I started making my banana seats, you know.
Okay.
I had 3 guys making them. We could make it. The woman I had sewing could only sew 125 a month, you know. So we were making it, and I was selling them. And naturally, as time went on, there was people copying them, and mine were a true roll and pleat and a true button tough, where they pinch seamed and, you know, did it right. And then they came up with the ones that are just stamped,
Molded,
which was
yeah.
a cheap imitation,
Yeah,
but
a
you know.
hot stamp or whatever.
But you know,
right.
that,
Okay.
you know, it's free country. You
Well,
know.
I think you know. Then Dixie tried to. He would always bring stuff to the lowest possible
Right.
denominator.
Yeah,
You know when it's going to make.
right. There's
He had it
some
down
of the quality
Yeah.
wasn't there.
Because I remember he had some seats made in Italy or somewhere
Right.
with Dixie studs, the rocker studs, right?
Yeah.
So the rocker
Yeah,
studs.
they would have been.
You
You know,
could-
they were 45.
Yeah.
And I bought them all.
Yeah,
you know.
I must have bought the other, but
Right.
anyway, they were only like 10 cents.
Right.
So I'm thinking,
I know.
you can't make it. And
Then actually I ran out of them, then I started having
make
the
it.
machine
But
myself.
when you think about Dixie, when you know the Springers, we bought the Springers as well. He had
Harry.
wheels and hubs, and Harry.
Harry Gnu.
Yeah,
I think his name was.
And you know something? No one really knows or gives him credit in the industry. They bring people into like a Hall of Fame and say, "Oh, this guy did so much."
Right.
I don't think anybody did more than he did of getting guys like us going.
Right, yeah.
He was it.
Yeah, I mean, we knew in our own mind what we were going to do. I mean, I was driving to work one day. I had a good job. I was driving cars from the assembly line to haulaway yards, and it was a cool job. I would drive all the 427s, you know, because the older guys, they didn't like that bump bump when you had to shift, you know. And I just loved it. I'd be smoking tires and going sideways and having a good time, but I couldn't do it no more. I had to follow my passion, you know.
Well, I think in those days without him, there was other motorcycle distributors with parts or whatever, and they imported stuff. But Harry had the surplus, which
Oh yeah,
you know he had that
did.
in background. And then whenever he bought stuff, he bought like a lifetime supply. Like he had twist grips. When they're on sale, they're $1.
Right.
So if you can't make money with
No,
those,
at $1. I mean, even if you're doubling your money,
Yeah.
so it's still only $1.
yeah. So I mean, anyway, so you could get and he had all the cables at fair price. I mean, he had all the stuff that Harley was relatively expensive on.
Right.
And then he had a replacement. So a good start for most of the chopper guys.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he had a lot of good stuff, you know.
So yeah, remember.
And like you say, when he bought, I mean, you ain't gonna buy 100 of them. You weren't gonna buy 1,000 of them. You know, that's it was his way of thinking. You know, which was good.
Well, and I think that's it. He would buy like on point sets. I think he bought 1 million point sets for like a shovel head. Well, you're always pedaling to start.
You got it, all right.
He had that.
Well, those flywheels are heavy enough that
Yeah.
once it gets going, it just
External flywheel. You had Rocky Cycle. You had quite a few people, you know, coming on board. But
Right.
I would say, you know, Harry would have been for us.
And he was a good guy. A lot of people, you know, when I went down there, just, you know, wander, just put it in a pile. You know, I mean, it was good. I mean, it's naturally, I'm not a thief, but, you know.
I know, and he did. And some of the last times in the 90s I was there, because he had the lights and everything turned off in some of the rooms.
Right.
He told this guy, "Oh, turn the lights on for Ted. He may buy something."
He might, you never know.
He might, but he even had the lights off.
Right.
But he kind of let it go with the fire, and I mean, he let. And,
Right.
and I think he said it too. He says, "I'm not making as good of decisions as he did, and as time went on." And
Right.
but
Yeah, you get burnt out after a
Yeah.
while. I mean, I still enjoy doing what I do. I still work, you know, and I'll probably work till the day I die. But,
Well,
but I just gotta be active. Gotta do what I do.
and people that say they think that they don't really know that they don't want to retire because
Right.
they think, what are they going to? What would
I
you
know.
Do? What would you do the next day?
I don't know. I mean, I love doing what I do. You know,
And I think the routine is healthy. You're going to
It
do the
is.
same thing. You do it. You know
right.
how
Well,
it's
it
going to
keeps your
happen.
mind active.
Yeah.
I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with whatever job I'm working on the next day. Okay, I can do it this way. And I'm 82 years old.
Okay.
And I don't know what I would do if I didn't have, you know, when they had the stupid disease out there, Covex, you know, I was still working every day, and it was just by myself, and which I work by myself a lot of times anyways, but nobody'd come over and,
Oh yeah, with the
you know, and
Well,
the
that's-
phone wouldn't ring. So I'd stay focused on doing, I painted 2 baggers and 2 choppers, and I was
Okay.
making these big sunflowers for this woman, and, you know,
But I know you do just normal art pieces. you know,
I've been
versus-
doing really well at it lately, you know.
More so than the bikes, or some you said.
I'm doing more art than I am bikes right now, because the bike thing is kind of went down, as you know.
Right.
And I'm still, I just did this restaurant called Bad Brad's Barbecue, and I did nine pieces. They're on pedestals in front of the restaurant, which isn't open because I can't get no help. But you
Right.
know,
Oh, even in Michigan.
yeah, that's good old
But you're in
Michigan.
Pontiac, right?
Yeah, but you know, I don't want to get into political, but she's a Democrat, and so
Oh.
you know,
We know. In the same here, some restaurants have actually, oh, I wanted to be open Thursday night. Now I can't open. I can't get help. So they're actually,
right? Yeah,
Open certain
it's
days,
It's
so-
terrible.
it is tougher, but the whole country, and we don't know. Now it's, it's a year and a half. It's still going on.
Yeah,
So,
they programming people. You got to wear that mask. Got to do this.
I saw a guy walking down like a back road. And there was nobody around. It's
I
in the
know.
woods, and he had his mask on. I'm thinking, why? What's he afraid of?
Right. And you see people driving down the road, only person in the car with a mask on. I don't get it. I've even seen guys on motorcycles with a mask. I don't know, whatever.
And then you're
Yeah,
certainly
change the subject
you're
before I
getting
get
enough. Yeah,
before
but
I get
think what
before
it
I
is
get
too,
mad.
But I think there's a lot of people that maybe haven't even left their house
Oh, there are.
since
No,
2000, and you don't
you're
know.
right.
They're so fearful. I saw people going into a store. The woman had a mask on, then she had a flat face shield
Yep,
besides.
I've seen that too.
So I'm thinking, she's worried. So
I know. It's just I just don't get it.
So Ron, when you talk about these, some of this, so you were one of the first guys to do these billet pieces for this.
Yes. Well, that way you could. Well, some of the front ends they're made for. I would make them specifically for that bike.
Okay.
You know, the right gooseneck length and everything.
Okay,
And
okay.
so I was making them for even for 450 Hondas and
Right.
750 Hondas and BSAs and Triumphs, and they all get a different stem.
Right. So
You
then that
know.
changed the trees and the
Right,
length. or
and
the
then
length
the
of-
length. And so by having them adjustable like that, you could control the length. If you made it shorter, then the rockers would come down,
Right.
and naturally longer they'd be up. But to be right, when it's the right amount of rake,
Yeah, and you got
whatever
the-
it is, the
yeah, so
rockers
you had
should
the
be
rocker
parallel
action.
to the ground. You know.
Yeah, the Springers and the number of Springer makers, but I think you were certainly the
Uh,
first and only
um,
one. You had the single tubes, the separate tubes.
Yeah, actually the single worked better because it would be like a Harley front end where they've got the thing across and they work together, you know. Yeah, the first time I saw this bike, I was in Daytona, and we were at the show, and this bike came in a crate, and they're uncrating it, and, you know, people are around looking at it naturally because, I mean, it's definitely really work of engineering masterpiece, and it was just really cool. I mean, it was the first time out, you know, first showing, and I got it to see it coming out of the crate. You know, I just happened to be the right place at the right time deal, you know. And I mean, to this day, the engineering and stuff is just fantastic.
And there's so much that he did. He's got like the bicycle neck, the single
Right.
single riser, the linkage to connect that to the front, taking the motors, canting the one without the transmission to nest in with the other with the front. I mean,
Right.
oh wow, look at that
Boy,
spring.
this is a cushy cush.
Yeah. So these 4 cars like this, I guess, you know, in Europe, I mean, maybe for the lady or maybe the guy would have a driver
Oh, yeah.
and ride. But so so let me say the section we're in now is, we say origins because it's everything before, say, 1903. So 1887, some of them steam powered, and then you get up into here. And for the most part, all this technology that started off and that was pretty well forward beyond the U.S. is French. It's just, that's what it is. After that Paris Exposition, everybody got the idea, you know, to build an internal combustion engine. And de Dion Boughton was one of the first. That one runs. We've driven that one. That's 1897. There he goes. Look at that wheel. Look how comfortable he is.
Wait, let me take the glasses off.
But anyway, so there was a group of German guys here a few months ago.
Okay.
They even admitted the French were first.
Wow.
So I'm thinking French were first.
Yeah, because Germany did do a lot.
They did a lot, but I think even with armaments and stuff, I think talking to people from West Point, they study a lot of the French military history of what they did and what they came up with. But the Dion Boughton even had to print their own map because if you sold a guy a motorcycle or tricycle, you'd have to have a map. But I think the Dion on those trikes, I think they built, I don't know, 15,000 of them
Wow.
from 1895 maybe to 1903. So there's still quite a few out there.
Right. And it's amazing that they made that many.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't have been reasonable.
No.
So the common person, I wouldn't think could afford one.
Well, no, all these were toys.
Well, yeah, well, you gotta have your toys. There's no doubt.
Pretty
in my mind.
wealthy, you know.
Yeah,
Even in the U.S. in the 1900s, the farm didn't even have a tractor, and then the kids buying a motorcycle.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
what's the family going to
Yeah, well,
say?
at least they have priorities straight.
Yeah, right.
You could have a tractor, you could have a motorcycle. I'll take the motorcycle.
Yeah. But I know on my family's farm, they had horses up into the teens.
Right.
You know, I think my grandfather bought a new wagon in like 1912. He must have been like 14 years old, and they buy a new wagon. I'm thinking, of course, the roads are dirt. I mean, you know.
Right.
So pretty much early on, the French, they had all, like in 1904, they had a V-twin already. And,
Right.
right, so,
Yeah, and how that gets to get developed. I mean, the guy's got to have like, more or less a genius to be able to figure it out.
well,
I mean,
you're talking, you know, we look at it now, okay, you know, but they had the differential, I think, from the three-wheel bicycle, you know,
Right.
tricycle. Some of that, of course, the crank starter and the frame and everything. These two, they didn't have a carburetor. They have a big splash box,
okay.
and the gas splashes around and then fumes
Okay.
up into the engine. So they didn't have a carburetor.
That's amazing.
But you still had to meter the amount.
Yeah, and they did.
So-
They had, so you had your
so that
fuel.
When the combustion came up, it fired
Yeah, and you had the
properly.
spark, so there was a lot going on for that to keep it.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't have it real good, the wheelbase, the way it was short. I guess they would probably flip pretty easily, you know. But they had, aesthetically, they had, the box on one side was the muffler, and then on the other side was the coil.
Right.
But they looked, you know, they balanced it
Yeah.
out. So
It's balanced, right, yeah.
Yeah, so Bruce has helped with a lot of the early. He wants everything, he likes everything before 1915. That's Thomas from Buffalo. Oh, no, well, that's 1897. I think Indian,
Bicycle powered by a motor.
yeah, Indian says 1901 because they were an actual factory. So, but these other ones, there was a lot of them around the same time, and then
Everyone started doing it.
everybody, because they had to, because the other guy, Dion, he sold those motors as well. So if you were in the U.S., you could just buy his motor,
So you use that motor for anything?
anything. Yeah, so it was all there.
Motorcycle, boat.
Yeah, well, they made bigger ones, of course, for cars, you know, heavier ones, and they made some water cooled.
So people are just putting